What's up, guys? Welcome back to Wealth Matters. I'm Warren. I'm a corporate banker in the City of London in the UK. I'm here to help you master your money and grow your long-term wealth. So I've done quite a lot of videos about how to get into property, how you can get into property and grow your wealth. One thing I haven't done is to give you my story on how I got into property. And I thought I'd make a video on that, just really detailing my journey, how I started investing, how it came about, where I'm at now, and where I hope to be in the future. So I hope you find this video useful. So I myself, along with my wife, we own our own home, and also we own 3 other properties across the UK, buy-to-let properties that we use for investments. And I also wanted to give you guys some tips on what's worked well for me during that process of becoming a property investor, and hopefully some of those that you can take away yourself and use during your journey. So let's start from the beginning. Back in 2014, I was in a position where I was pretty disillusioned and jaded from my job. I had a very good job. I was in the banking industry. I was doing consulting, but I was working mad hours. I was exhausted. I was actually burnt out, truth be told. And I got to a stage where I was like, I'm in my 20s and I'm burnt out. I literally don't have the physical energy to spend time with my friends, my family, etc. This isn't a life that I'd wanted or signed up for. So I began thinking then, not so much about property, but I was like, I need to make money in a way that's sustainable. So whether that was, I thought about becoming a teacher, guys. I thought about going into different industries. I considered all options. I got to a point where I said, you know what, I do need to get a different source of income. I don't quite know what that's going to be yet, but I need to have a break. So I took the decision to quit my job in the city. Some people thought I was crazy. Some people thought, hey, good for you. So I quit my job in the city and I went traveling for a year. And I had the time of my life, guys. I know this isn't a holiday vlog, but I went to Australia. I went to South Africa. I went to Sri Lanka. I went lots of places. And I had a great time. I had a rest from work. And I did crazy things like volunteering on a reserve for orphaned and rescued elephants. I went into the bush in Australia and I looked for kangaroos. I worked as a milkman. I did random stuff that I really will remember forever. But during that time as well, back to the topic, I was thinking about what I'm going to do for money and what I'm going to do as a new career, or maybe approach my career in a different way when I came back to London. And as I said, I came up with a few options. One of the options was, how about you go into a different industry? I mentioned teaching. And a few other industries that I considered. But for me, I just didn't want to retrain in a new industry, in a new skill in my late 20s. Not that it can't be done, of course it can, but I didn't really have the appetite. I couldn't be bothered to do that, guys. I also thought of starting my own business. That really seemed like, truth be told, at that point in time, that was the one. I was like, I'm going to start my own business. But of course, what is the business going to be? I didn't have any good ideas. So, as much as I wanted to do that, and I still want to do that now, truth be told, I didn't know what to do. I didn't have that idea that was, first of all, a good enough idea that was scalable and that could give me a sustainable income. So that's on the back burner, but that wasn't an option. And then lastly, the last main option was, let me invest in something. Okay. So I thought, okay, let me do the stock market. People make money from the stock market, right? That's a good thing to do. And as I did my research, I realized that, in order to make a regular income from stock market investing, you have to have a large amount of capital in there. I'm talking like millions, to be able to live off of it as a wage, to live off of those dividend returns and not have to work. And, I don't have millions of pounds. So then I also looked at property, and I did some research into this, and I was thinking, the way property is set up, you get paid rent, right? And rent is a regular stream of monthly income, just like a wage. So I was like, okay, that sounds like a good option. So that really became the most viable option that could replace my income over the long term. So let me fast forward. When I came back to London and I had that in mind. I was like, okay, property is going to be the solution. However, when it comes to property, there are a few things you need. First and foremost, you need the deposit, right? So unless you have an inheritance and you had rich parents or rich grandparents, or you had a trust fund, you're going to have to save that money, right? So I said, okay, I still want to do property, but I have to come up or I have to follow a strategy that's going to not necessarily require me to save hundreds of thousands of pounds for a deposit, because I just don't have that, and it's going to take ages, right? I want to get out of work as soon as possible. So London, for example, wouldn't have been a viable strategy for me, because the average price of a property in London, it's over 400k basically. So when we're talking about a 25% deposit that's required for buy-to-let properties, most of the time, we're talking about 100 grand per property. Don't have that, right? So, okay, I'm going to have to do something elsewhere. Now, where are properties more affordable? And the answer was outside of London, all right? Specifically for me, up north. And the more research I did, the more I found that, northern cities, in the northwest region to be exact, like your Nottinghams, your Sheffields, your Liverpools, your Manchesters, Leeds, you can get a one-bed property in those regions starting at, around about £100,000 new build. And this was based on research that I did. The Property Podcast, guys, for me, that's probably the single biggest source of property education that I've drawn from over my investing journey. I haven't paid for a single course, a single property seminar, training course. I'm not saying that there's anything bad about those or anything wrong with them, but I started out with the mindset that this information is out there in books, or it's free, and a lot of it is actually free. You don't even have to necessarily buy books. I did buy books, but the vast majority of it was through podcasts, internet, YouTube. The information's out there, guys. You don't have to pay thousands for it. Anyway, so up north was the plan. I spent, I'd say, a year just researching before I said, okay, let me start making serious, tangible moves towards actually buying a property. So I spent a year researching. Now, let's talk about the deposit, right? So as I said, when you're buying a property, you're going to need 25% down. My price point that I was aiming for was 100k. I'm going to need to save 25k plus the legal fees, broker fees, etc., stamp duty. So all in all, to buy a house in the UK at the lower end, we're talking about 35k. So how am I going to get that money together? And I mentioned that I own 4 properties, including my own. And that might be a question on a lot of your minds. Where did you get that money from? So it was really simple, guys. I needed a job that was going to pay enough to fund that. I didn't have any money from savings. I had 0 savings when I got back from Australia in 2015, at the end of 2015. I had nothing, so I started from scratch. I needed a job that was going to pay that. Banking industry is well paid, but it doesn't necessarily give you, unless you're like CEO or managing director, it's hard to get that kind of money. So I said, what are my options? Contracting, guys. Contracting for me, and in a lot of other industries, is a great way to get paid a higher rate of pay for using, the skill set that you already have. And, the main difference between contracting versus being a permanent full-time employee is that a contract lasts for a specific amount of time, usually 6 months at a time. And at the end of each 6 months, they will either extend you, or they'll say, look, you've done your job, we can't extend you, and you shake hands and you find the next contract. So for some people, or for a lot of people, very high risk. A lot of people don't have the appetite to do that. But for me and my goals, I said, I'm 100% on finding financial freedom, not just financial freedom, but just freedom in general, right? Via this property strategy. So I am going to, absorb that risk and going to this contracting route and do these jobs as a contractor so I can get paid a more favorable rate and use that to fund my property. So that's what I've been doing for the last 5 years, guys. And that's how I've managed to build a portfolio up to free buy-to-let properties, and I'm looking to do my next one hopefully next year. So what are some tips that I can give to you guys? By the way, guys, if you find this video and my content useful, drop a like, really helps. Leave a comment, let me know what you think of this video and what you want me to talk about in the future. But what are some tips? So first and foremost, figure out your goals. Don't just start with, I need more money, or I want to do property for the sake of doing property. What are your goals? What are your financial goals? How much income do you want to be making 5 years from now? Okay. Where do you want to be living 5 years from now? What do you want to buy 5 years from now? You know, what do you want your life to look like? And you start there. And then once you have an idea of what your overarching goals are, then try and put some numbers on that. So my goal, for example, was to not have to work full time by the time I'm 40. And that's a goal that I'm working towards. But you need to put some actual numbers around that. So I'm like, okay, if I'm not going to be working by the time I'm 40, my mortgage is this, my monthly expenses are this, you know, the cost of, you know, maintaining my household and my family are this. So I need to earn X per month from somewhere, from property, right? So now it becomes, okay, so this is a number that I need. How many properties do I need to do that? And that's how you build your goals, right? You start with your goals and you build down into, that's how you attach your goals to your property investing strategy. So that's the strategy that I follow. Start with your goals first and foremost. Secondly, guys, research as much as you can. So again, what do I mean by that? If you are going into property, you need to know how the property process works, how you finance a property, how the legal process works around property, how you're going to manage a property. Are you going to use an agent? Are you going to manage it yourself? If you manage it yourself, what are your responsibilities as a landlord? What is a good property? What is a good area? All of that research. And as I said at the beginning, guys, that information is out there and it's free. You don't have to pay for it. I'm giving you some of this content in my videos, in this video, other videos as well. Take the time to research, because when you research correctly and you do that preparation, you really do minimize your chances of going wrong, right? And, you know, I'll just tell you now, all of my properties are profitable. I haven't lost money on any of them. They've gone up in value. That's down to research, guys. It's that simple. And then lastly is to take action. Do all your research, educate yourselves, have your goals prepared, but don't get into this kind of analysis paralysis situation where you're doing so much research and there's so much information in your brain that you don't actually take action. So you have to have the balls and the guts to actually say, okay, you know what? I feel 80% comfortable, or, you know, you're never going to feel 100% comfortable with what, you know, especially if you're investing in another city, but 80%, 70% is good. Then get on a train, go to that city and put down an offer, a deposit, and start the process once, you know, you're pretty much there, guys. So those are my 3 main tips for you. Let's talk about the future. What do I want to do in the future? I mentioned that, you know, I have a number in mind and I need a certain amount of properties to get there. I have 3 one-bed buy-to-lets right now, and they're giving me a certain income, but I need to accelerate that income. So what I'm going to do going forward is go for a different strategy. I'm happy with my one-bed standard buy-to-lets, but as I go forward, I'm going to go into commercial property, specifically mixed-use properties. So when you see a shop, you know, you see a newsagents in residential areas. If next time you're walking past a newsagent or an off-license, have a look at the actual building, because you usually have a shop at the bottom and residential flats above it. And somebody owns those properties, guys. So those properties are very lucrative because you have a commercial tenant, say the shop owner below, paying you a commercial rent, which is usually higher than a standard tenant's rate. And then you've got a few flats above. So you've actually got individuals or maybe families, who knows, paying you their rent. So you've got a number of different tenants all in the same property. So that's a really good strategy. And then also I want to look at serviced accommodation. So we're talking about stuff like Airbnb and Booking.com, much higher rates per night, more risk involved, more work involved. But for me and my goals, that's what I'm pursuing. So guys, that's me. That's how I got into property. And also I gave you a little breakdown of what I'm looking to do in the future. I hope you found this video useful, guys. If you did, drop a like, share it. Let me know in the comment section what you thought of it and what you want me to talk about in the future. That all really helps, guys, and I'll see you guys soon.